Hello everybody, this is Albert with Green Tea House. I hope you're doing well today. Today I'm here to make a bold prediction that within 20 years, artisanal tea is going to be more popular or equal to artisanal coffee, and why this is. Now before we begin, if you haven't done so already, please come and visit us here over in Central Texas at the tea store. Also subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't done so already so these episodes come fresh to you. And post a comment if you agree or disagree. Now, we have a playlist here on the history of tea. And I've talked about in that playlist how tea was exceedingly popular post-Boston Tea Party in addition to pre-Boston Tea Party. And if you look at per capita coffee consumption and tea consumption, it was about equal up into the early 1900s. And we'll have a future episode of what happened after that. Currently, coffee is consumed more than tea in America, even if you account for iced tea. So depending on which studies you look at, it's about 70% of Americans drink coffee daily. That's pretty high. And if you look at with Americans in tea, it's about 50%, and that includes iced tea. And remember, when it comes to tea, the majority of Americans who drink it are going to be drinking iced tea, which is black tea, and then it's also going to be English style black tea, whether it be English blends or Earl Grey or whatnot, because that's the patrimony that we got from England. So it's not like the typical American, and this is changing, but it's not like the typical Americans drinking a lot of oolongs or greens or dark teas or anything like that. But right now, coffee is winning. Now, why do I think this is going to change? I think it's largely trends, and it's cyclical. Because if you look 25 years ago, who was drinking coffee and what were they drinking? It was mostly older people, and they were drinking Folgers, instant coffees, Nescafe, remember those? And then it was a lot of like diner coffee, gas station coffee, just that garbage for 75 cents. And it wasn't until Starbucks came around that things started to change. So what changed? Essentially, they brought in artisanal coffee. High quality, again, this is the late 90s Starbucks, high quality Arabica. And then what else did they do? They sugarfied it, and most importantly, they marketed it toward the kids. So if you look generally speaking, old people drank coffee. Now if you look at the stats, and there's a lot of great stats on coffee consumption. The generation that drinks the most coffee, not surprisingly, is Gen Z. And then you see it markedly go down as you get older. And we'll talk about why this is. So coffee has reached its peak, I really think, in terms of artisanal coffee. Tea's about 20 years behind. Tea's catching up. You will see, and you have seen, that yes, more than 50% of Americans drink tea. Yes, much of that is iced tea. Yes, much of that is black tea. Much of that is tea bag tea. But there's definitely been a growth of artisanal loose leaf tea in America. And this is going to grow. There's no reason to think it won't. Simply because, if anything, smart entrepreneurs, and I'm not one, I'm a teacher. Smart entrepreneurs are going to see that maybe the coffee market is getting more saturated, but it's not the tea market. And even in the town that I live in, there's iced tea drive-thrus that are sprouting up everywhere, but people are going to see that there is a place for sit-down tea shops or retail tea shops. Certainly if you live in a big city, you're going to find retail tea shops, and there's well-known kind of national franchises that I'm not going to mention, but there is growth, and that growth is going to continue. What else? You look at the growth of afternoon tea popularity, and you can ascribe this to various things, maybe the show Bridgerton, who knows, but certainly compared to 20 years ago, 15 years ago, little kids have always been doing like little tea parties, but now you see it like full blown out, how people are wanting to do afternoon tea at hotels or afternoon teas at a tea place, and you see these afternoon tea boutiques opening up as well. So you see that popularity increasing. But I think the main reason you're going to see this is because tea's healthier. And with the growth of the internet, with the growth of social media, you're going to see more people as they get older realize this. I've talked about in the episode how you're never going to have a doctor tell you got to stop drinking less tea and more coffee. No, it's always the converse. I got to stop drinking more coffee, the doctor says, because it's causing jitters and palpitations, and it's raising my heartbeat and all these things like that, because that's what coffee does. And we've talked about that. Fundamental differences between coffee and tea is that tea is tantamount to drinking orange juice. Coffee is tantamount to drinking orange juice. Tea is tantamount to eating an orange in terms of how the body processes that sugar. And it's the same thing with caffeine, for example, between coffee and tea. Tea has theanine, which causes relaxation and focus. Coffee does not have that. Tea has much higher amounts of antioxidants, especially if you look at the greens and the whites, than coffee does. So all the health benefits that coffee has, tea has more of, and less the adverse effects. And so I think you're going to see the knowledge of this as the demographic gets older. People are going to start weaning off of coffee and going to tea. I think you also augment that with just the growth of tea stores, whether they be iced tea stores or they're sit-down stores or Asian tea stores. I think you look at that. And I think that just with time, you're going to see tea consumption increase. Now, I don't think it's necessarily going to be as much like with iced tea or whatnot, but just artisanal high quality tea. That's a niche. Before tea stores, is a niche that you would find with people like maybe will go to Whole Foods or if they lived in New York or San Francisco. But there's just been a dynamic growth the last decade, and I don't foresee any reason that that's going to change. And I just think the main reason is this: people are going to learn that tea is healthier, and yes, if you need to, you can milk and sugar those up as much as you can with coffee. You've seen the popularity with matcha lattes, hojicha lattes, and a lot of tea confectionery stuff that you can do just as much on the tea side than you can with the coffee side. So with all these things, these are the reasons I think that within 20 years, tea is going to be just as popular as coffee, if not more. Guys, post in the comments. Give more reasons that I haven't mentioned, or if you agree or disagree, post in the comments. Until next time, take care and God bless.